Hello, in this video, I'm going to give you tips on how to improve your IELTS listening score. So, if you want to improve your listening score, this video is perfect for you. Listening tip number 1 is to improve your overall listening skills. This is the most important tip of all of them. To improve your overall listening skills, it's a very good idea to use podcasts, especially ones related to academic topics like Stuff You Should Know. This podcast covers many topics, and again, you can get lots of great expressions and practice your listening. And it's great to use audio that has a script like TED Talks. If you can go and check the script later, this will really help you to improve your overall listening. And once you've read the script, go back and listen to it 1 or 2 times. Remember, you're improving your ability to listen and catch words this way. Tip number 2 is to improve your overall vocabulary. This is really a vocabulary test. While you're doing any listening, it's a very good idea to keep a list of expressions and words that you don't know. These expressions could come up in future listenings, so if you're able to improve your overall vocabulary, this will help you a lot when improving your listening and also with your speaking, writing, and reading. The listening test is really a vocabulary test. The words in the questions are not the same in the answers, so having the ability to know certain words or paraphrasing really is what this test is checking. Tip number 3 is to think about which grammatical word will best fit the gap. For word types that best fit a gap, here's a great example. What 2 factors can make social contact in a foreign country difficult? Now, we know that this is going to be a noun. Now, it could be a noun or a gerund, which is an ing. So again, you're looking at this gap and you know that a certain type of word will fit there, and this will help you catch that word when you hear it in the audio passage. Tip number 4 is to think about and predict the situation that you're going to listen to before the test begins. You will have time to think before the listening passage begins. So try to think of topics and expressions you will hear. If the topic is about the environment, start thinking of topics and expressions related to this. Pollution, waste, toxic waste, things like this. Tip number 5 is don't lose attention. You will get frustrated. You have to stay focused. Don't lose attention while you're listening. You will get frustrated during the listening test. Don't focus on what you don't understand. Focus on what you do understand. Have a guess and move on. Many times people get frustrated and they stop listening or stop listening as carefully. You can't do this. You only get to listen once. So if you miss something, that's normal. Just move on and catch the answers you can. Tip number 6 is to listen for word indicators like however and finally. With regards to word indicators, these words help organize the topics and how you hear them. For example, however, you know that a different or contrasting point is coming. Finally, you know that the previous point is finished and now the speaker is moving on to the final point. These words really help organize the listening and your answers. Tip number 7, don't write your answers too quickly. Listening test makers love to make you think you have the answer only to change it later or find it later in the listening. A perfect example is listening for price. It often won't be the first price you hear. It will be the adjusted price that you hear later. So be careful and don't think that you have the answer too quickly. Tip number 8 is to make sure and read your questions very carefully. When? Well, you're listening for time. What plus thing? Well, you're listening for nouns, like what color or what activity. How often? You're listening for frequency expressions. Often, usually, twice a week, once a month, expressions like this. How big? Well, you're listening for size. So you want to listen for things like meters or kilograms, expressions like this. Tip number 9 is to make sure you transfer or write down your answers carefully on the answer sheet. It's a good idea to use all caps to avoid making spelling mistakes with capitalized words, such as places. If you use all caps, you can't lose points for spelling mistakes. Make sure the answer you transfer corresponds with the number. This seems obvious, but when you're in a hurry or stressed, you might write an answer in the wrong number. So make sure you are lining up your answers correctly when you're inputting them on the final answer sheet. And tip number 10 is to not leave any blank answers. It's always better to have a guess. It's always best to have a guess. Hey, you might get lucky, and a blank is definitely worth 0. But trying at least gives you a chance. You might have the right answer. Even if you didn't hear it in the listening, you might have a guess, and it could be the correct answer. Well, I hope you found those tips useful, and I hope they help you a lot. And I wish you the best of luck on your next IELTS test.